it was a great performance from them. It was one that went 14 games long, but you can see that they know what it takes to win, Tiff, and that's something they proved today, even over a very well-performing Moist Esports.
Look, I'm so excited.
Moist
I was asked earlier what my teams to watch were on Twitter, and it is NTH, straight up through and through. Fire Beavers tweeted out as well that they are in support of Northampton, and I could not be more excited to see them show out on top. Now, I know Genome has been waiting to roll me on my POV of this.
Look, I believe in Northampton as well.
Bro, is that, is that Saul?
I think this is going to be one of the times,
is that Jimmy McGill?
One of the rare times, actually, where they'll make it to endgame like that and be looking that good. Because,
bro, actually, Jimmy McGill look like
to the zone, right? They run in the opposite direction to it as often as they can.
I'm slipping Jimmy. Okay.
Spot at the edge of the zone, and as a result, they just seem to take fight after fight, and it's rare that you'll see them, in the end game like that. But we can see that if they do get there, they can play it smart. They were underneath Moist there, and you saw Moist were just waiting, hoping that those grenades would finally finish off Alliance so that they could worry about the team underneath them. But unfortunately,
Alliance's logo is so bad.
Just long enough, and then
Northampton
kind of had the cleanup from there.
Waltzy so close in finishing it off. It was Northampton with a win in Game 3. But overall, we thought it might be XSET going back-to-back-to-back. Not this time around. No TSM either. Alliance, though, woke up. And again, I kind of want to go back to you, Genome. I've been talking about Moist Esports. They didn't win there, but this is a team now. I think they've almost put themselves in a position to be fourth, third place heading into the final 3 games. That is a strong performance from a team that had a lot of fan favorites back in Championship, formerly Team Burger, now representing Moist Esports very well.
If I'm not wrong, I think they got top 5 in every single game so far, and that just shows how good a zone team they are, right? Their comp is tailored from that. They switched over to the crypto partway through Split 1 just to really solidify that playstyle that they have, which is really that hard zone playstyle. They are, I mean, if you put all 4 teams at the land on a spectrum, right? From, the most hardcore edge teams to the most safe zone teams, Moist would probably be in, I'd say, the top 5 teams who really like to
actually, never mind. I think it was
straight for that end zone and then sit there for as long as they can to capitalize in a game exactly like this.
I mean, Tiff, I'd love to see them going up against Ascend, another great zone team that we are waiting to see. They're playing in C&D now, but overall, I mean, looking at this, yes, we've seen some damage at the top, but this was a game where some teams who needed to step up and get some points found a way to do it, and heading into World's Edge, that's got to give some teams a boost as well.
Yeah, I think that the teams that kind of warmed up this game are doing exactly with how it mirrored their performance in ALGS Split 1 Pro League.
Right.
Alliance, they didn't have the best match day number 1, and it was a slow burn. Then they started heating up and getting more comfortable. They came back 1 match day number 2. You look at Northampton, they came from the preseason qualifiers. They won the 2nd preseason quals, go into Pro League Split 1, and I mean, just look at that. Look what happens when they start heating up. 23 points there. And that's exactly what you need to do. And you talked about Moist Esports making it the longevity, right, Genome? But not getting the eliminations. They actually picked up quite a bit because they were able to hold that high ground.
Yeah, I'd say 6 for a 2nd place team is like, it's okay, right? But you don't often see them pick up those big bags of kills.
Moist Esports coming second? God damn.
14 kill, or a 16
Moist Critical Esports?
And that's the issue, too, I think you're bringing up as we head into some of the teams on the back half of this board, 11 to 20. Some of the problems are if you do play so zone-heavy, Genome, and when you win, you win with 16 points.
Get TSM's placing here.
Instead of 32,
in map 3.
It's still going to be difficult for you to break into that threshold.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a group stage you're talking about, winning is probably enough to get you through anyway, if you're looking at that on average, right? But yeah, as you say, when it comes to match point, you need to get there quickly, and those kills become a lot more important when you're capitalizing and just trying to bank those 50 before you go for gold. So, yeah, the teams in the bottom 10 here, obviously, not right on that pace right now.
Tiff, I want to talk a little bit about TSM. They started off really strong. I think they were almost ramping up. XSET then took over the Thunder. And it feels like since then, TSM have had a couple of difficult fights. 1 point there leading out in Game 3.
Everyone's actually sleeping,
will they be able to pick it up? I know a lot of people talking about them being #1 in the world, but now they've got to prove it here in these last 3 games.
Well, let's just talk about Lava Siphon. That's their drop top spot on World's Edge. They feel incredibly confident there. They've been chowed all throughout scrims, and they have defended Lava Siphon. And teams like IG, which are, you'll see them competing against them later, tried to split Lava Siphon with them, and they eventually just kind of held strong. That is their POI. But you're right. They were in the bottom half of match number 3, and I feel as if they make kind of some small mistakes, or they go the distance and pick up everything. It's like something simple that they're like, oh, that was a misstep, and then they go out on their first fight.
And I honestly think that Lava Siphon is the most overpowered POI, single POI on either of the competitive maps that we have here in competitive play. So yeah, I think the change from going, from Storm Point over to World's Edge is going to be a massive boon for TSM, because you walk out of there with like 3 purples, like gold attachments. You've got you get the hot zone half the time. This place is just insane.
You walk out there just looted.
Bro, what is this guy doing, bro? He's locked in.
Was done, and it was just about hitting your shots, which, as we do have to remind you, sometimes is just deciding who wins the game. It's not always all the tactics and all the great play and where you land. Somebody who just hits those prowler shots might end up winning. It was a little bit more complicated here because Alliance was threatening the other side of the circle, but they were also low. And it forced Moist Esports to actually pay a lot of attention to Alliance. Reception ended up being the big threat.
Yeah, so Moist were playing on the second floor. They did well because there were a lot of teams in this building to actually get that high ground towards the end of this game. And then with Alliance continually peeking their heads out there, they had to pay attention to them. But unfortunately, they just couldn't finish off. We saw them get that one res towards the end, which just unfortunately made Moist pay a little bit too much attention to that and just left it completely free for North Epsilon on the bottom floor.
I think Alliance, though, actually Moist end up taking a better trade there because they get the 2 kills of the knocks that they had for Alliance, and they get the extra 2 points from going from 7 points you would have gotten in third to 9 points that you'll get taking second place. So I think it was a good call versus taking on a full North Epsilon team.
Probably go to bed
ultimately, it is something that you have to make decisions in those moments. I think Moist will be happy with their performance through 3. Heading into World's Edge, though, guys, I want to start talking about this because the maps changed significantly. Will we continue to see? Well, let me ask this to you: what will we see here in this transition?
Oh my gosh, it's the first time we're going to see World's Edge on land, so literally anything can happen. But when I think about World's Edge, this has been in competition for so long. The POIs themselves are closer together. You don't have those big, long, open rotations where if you're running a charge rifle or a sentinel, you can kind of get some farming damage. You may be able to look and get a good chunk of information because you're going to see further, but you have smaller rotations. So I think that's going to be favored. So maybe the people that play zone are going to just hit it quick.
Certain teams like Pulverex as well. I'll get your thoughts in just a little bit, but Pulverex actually having a 60%, 57% to be accurate, win percentage in certain areas on World's Edge. So hopefully that improves, as well as some of the teams that desperately need the points. We're coming back and we're taking a trip, not from London, we'll still be here, but to World's Edge in game. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more ALGS Split 1 playoffs.
Herman Miller Gaming is the official chair partner of the Apex Legends Global Series.
WD Black is the official storage partner of the Apex Legends Global Series.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to the ALGS Split 1 playoffs. And as you can tell, the accents are a little bit more local. You've got Onset and you've got Gaskin in the booth. London, you are sounding beautiful, by the way, and it's our turn now to take you through what is going to be the final 3 games of today. Dan, let's talk about what we've seen, though. Storm Point, done and dusted.
I'm gonna be fucking real, bro. Like, holy shit, that crowd is empty.
It's time for us to move over to World's Edge.
It is, and that means better throughout regular season when it comes to World's Edge. So we're going to start to see maybe more traditional rotations, more traditional setups, a lot of late game fights that are going to come right down to the wire, and a few teams that might be able to pick up points in those big moments to try and progress in this table.
And I mean, starting off the day, we were on Storm Point, obviously, and we were a little bit worried it was going to be NA all day, with Exit going back to back, TSM having that big game one as well. But we saw a little bit of international flavor come back to the fore with Norception with the win, and of course, Moist just in behind them in second place. Dan, great to see the universal kind of Apex community coming together there and seeing a little bit of those different regions popping up when they need to.
And I think we needed it in this group. We couldn't allow one team to just start running away with it. Otherwise, then teams are looking at, you know, maybe we can pick up points at second place. Maybe we have to go over to World's Edge and hope that something's going to happen to Exit. Bad news is that Exit actually very good at World's Edge as well. They had so many points in the regular season, so it's not like they're going to drop off suddenly.
Hey. Oh, fuck.
Regular season, so it's not like they're going to drop off suddenly getting into World's Edge here. But I think the bad news for Exit is everyone else should now be getting far better, and maybe those land jitters are going to be starting to fade away as well.
100%, that's a big thing, right? We always talk about that, the land jitters, you get those out of the way. Game number 1, it seemed like TSM really didn't have any with those big fights that they won, but everyone's starting to grow into this lobby a little bit. Like I mentioned, you saw Norception with that win in the last game, a lot of KP to go alongside it as well, which is certainly going to boost them up, those overall standings. But like a pair of comfy old slippers, you don't want to get rid of, we do go to World's Edge now. And like you say, a lot of these end zones, you have more places to coexist. We know these teams, know their rotations a little bit more. We see everyone's a little bit more comfortable on the stage. I think this is where we're going to see the best Apex Legends that we're going to see today.
Yeah, I'm very interested about drops, right? Where are people going to be landing? We've had changes, teams were dropped out, so now we have teams replacing them. They could throw a little bit of a spanner in the works here. We believe we might see contests down in Thermal between Alliance and Flora. We know full well that Alliance have dominated Thermal for the last few years, right? Suddenly someone coming to try and take that drop spot off them, they are not going to be happy about it, so we will keep an eye on the southwest side of World's Edge and see whether that does go down.
We've seen Alliance holding off a few contests in the international scrims at the build-up to this event as well, but we'll have to keep an eye, of course, like you say, on Thermal Station to see if that fight does go down. But looking across the teams that we've got on our stage here, you can see 100 Thieves, they're going to be ready, but a little bit quiet from them so far today.
It has been a little bit quiet, and perhaps that can just be down to maybe poor performances on Storm Point throughout the season. It's not exactly comfortable for them. World's Edge should be better, but when you look across this whole lobby, you can say that for so many of them now, you can't really rely on one map. As we progress through this tournament, through playoffs, you've got to be good on both, especially when we start to talk about match point later on Sunday. You can't just be good at one, because let's say you get onto match point and then you go over to Storm Point, things are going to really be struggling for you. So you've got to make sure you're consistent across both, and it is certainly a good way to start the tournament if you can find said consistency.
Death Adder.
And we have seen that
Death Adder
consistency
user
start to come to the fore for a lot of the teams who are at the top of those leaderboards across their respective pro leagues across the world, because we have just played more games on Storm Points with more competitive
lobbies.
lobbies.
God, hold on,
As you see those strategies develop, you see the teams who
wait a second.
rotations, what spots
is that a regular fucking Death Adder? There's no way.
They want to hold, whatever it might be.
Wait a
and
second.
Just played more games
during the groups.
And we have seen
holy fuck, I think that's a regular Death Adder.
Consistency start to come to the fore for a lot of the teams who are at the top of those leaderboards across their respective pro leagues across the world, because we have just played more games on Storm Points with more competitive lobbies. And as you see,
that's a regular Death Adder, like not a tournament edition, not an elite, not chroma.
Those now as a kind of flex edge team, they like to take these fights now. Since kind of Raven came into the mix, and they've completely changed how things have gone. They are destroying these World's Edge lobbies when it comes to kills, and that's going to make things a little bit more difficult for people on their rotations, right? If you've suddenly got TSM and J Lings running around just trying to kind of collapse on you, that rotation's not going to be comfortable.
That's very, very true. And of course, you know, they've managed to completely and utterly own their POI as well that they drop at. Now TSM Lava Siphon. We saw a couple of maybe teams having a look at it. We saw Dark Zero have a little pop. They backed off of it in the international scrims. We saw a couple of other teams. IG had a little bit of pop. They're not going to be there anymore. So they have complete dominance over one of the strongest
No
POIs
crowd
on the
reaction.
map,
Get
which is
wrecked,
why we are
Bozo.
seeing such a big point, you know, return from them across these lobbies. But there's a couple of other teams that I want to keep an eye on here as well. And SSG are one. SSG we kind of never really talk about at the forefront, but after one game they were at the top of the leaderboards, a little bit quiet in the next two, but I still feel like there's something to be proven here for SSG. Even if you're kind of hearing the mumblings and the rumors, this team is here on LAN. 3 players sat next to each other that played together for such a long time. I want to see him prove a point here.
Yeah, I mean, you can go into mumblings, you can go into rumors, but at the end of the day, everyone is still competitive and will focus on the task at hand, and that is getting a victory. Because regardless of what might happen afterwards, as long as you can actually get something done here and now, you can walk away as champion.
Right, it's ALGS time instead. ALGS time.
That won't actually happen. I will say for
Dude,
SSG,
the
when
stadium
it comes
is
to
like
the landing
empty,
spot as
bro.
well, I feel like they should have a pretty
So
comfortable
sad.
rotation into the center of the map. Mainly because when you look at teams that are around them, they're going to be rotating quite quickly as well. As will a lot of this lobby, it has to be said.
In the last match,
Back to
Moist
TSM
Esports came
and their Lava
second.
Siphon drop, they also have quite a comfortable rotation when it's to the middle of the map as well, because they'll be next to Pulverex, and we know Pulverex are such a zone-based team. You even saw it in some of the games on Stormpoint.
Yeah.
They wouldn't even get kills. They were just getting to that final 3. They want points, they want to get into the finals, and they want to make sure they are there on the last day.
And speaking of Pulverex, guys, good to see them with 3 players
Oh,
on
it is.
stage, isn't it? I've got to say, they were the heart. I mean, there were some amazing teams at the ALGS Championships that we had in Raleigh earlier in the year, but earlier last year, I should say. We were in a new year, Dan Gaskin. But it was, I mean, there was one of the biggest stories coming out of it, wasn't it? It was the Pulverex heart. They were the heart of the tournament. They were the duo. They almost got to that finals lobby as well. Just came up short. But now they have that 3-player lineup. They're going to be here looking to cause some problems. And speaking of problems, this man's caused a few so far today. Sykes on your screen. I mean, he has been beaming as we take a look at some of the highlights that we've seen from XZ so far.
Yeah, considering the hardships that XF had to face so far this tournament, it doesn't seem to have phased them whatsoever. In fact, some might say they look even a little bit better. They look even more comfortable. But honestly, incredible the first 2 games that we saw on Stormpoint. Okay, it was quite favourable for them in terms of where the circle was going. It was a very central location. They dropped very central at Cascade Falls as well. But you look at the team types, you look at how they achieved some of these games. It is not an easy victory that was presented to them. They had to fight hard to make sure they won these games.
They did, and they put up a huge amount of kills alongside it as well. And that man on your screen, fun is fun to watch today. And one thing that I saw him, I'm not very good at lip reading, but this one was pretty simple. After game number 2, saw him turn to his right, just go, too easy. Too easy. That's how he's feeling right now. And to be honest with you, my question to you, Dan Gaskin, is that seat in the middle is empty. Nox seems to be playing pretty well, calling some pretty good zones, you know, marshalling the troops in the way you want an IGL to. Do you think they're just going to keep him in isolation for the next couple of days without their playing?
I mean, if they keep winning, keep him there. That's all I'll say. Don't change what is actually working. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I will say, though, in terms of like saying, you know, it's so easy, we're getting back-to-backs, confidence, everything. We talk about it so much in Apex Legends, whether it's going into a fight, whether it's calling a rotation, whether it's making sure that you have the right zone locations. You always need to be confident in every decision you make. And if you are going into those fights thinking, yes, we can win every single engagement, people are going to run away from you. Because you can see it in people's movement. If someone is literally beelining towards you, you can very honestly tell they are going to try and kill us. And sometimes you just got to try and get out of that because you know how difficult it is when you're on the back foot in some of these engagements.
Yeah, and I've got to give a shout as well. Hotzik behind them, obviously one of the smartest minds that we have in all of Apex Legends, making some great calls for them in the build-up to this, preparing his team in the way that you would want them to. I've also got to say, really excited to see XF picking up that Prowler, because that has been a sleeping giant. A little bit of a buff recently that we saw, and let me tell you, if you've got that in the hands of Sykes and he is in a 1v1 engagement, it's not going to take him too much time to put someone on their back.
It's also very quite entertaining to watch that as soon as a gun gets even the slightest of buff, every player seems to adapt and instantly is a god with it as well. It doesn't seem to matter what weapon is going to be the best in their hands. They will always find a way to pick it up and put it to good use. That being said, if you do find yourself maybe with not one of the best weapons, we are still seeing players actually getting kills because, you know, it's a pretty balanced style in terms of this game. Every gun can do some damage in the right situation at the right time.
And even that little shift, right, moving certain weapons into the crafter, you know, the car was at the front end of all of the SMGs when it came to whoever was picking it up, especially if you had the roller in your hand. You were picking up that car. Now that that's put in there alongside this scout, it means there's a little bit of a change up in some of the longer distance weapons that we're seeing. Some of the chip damage, the Evo shield. kind of boosting weapons, if you want to call it that. We're seeing the 30-30 come to the fore a little bit more. Of course, the charge rifle is still going to be big in those long-range battles and engagements. But it's interesting to see the Volt coming back into the fore as well, Dan, as that lead SMG for a lot of these players.
Yeah, it is, because otherwise, you know, if you get too stuck and hell-bent on playing one particular style with one particular gun, you are going to get to a point when as soon as these changes happen, you don't really know where to go. So that's why these players are always making sure they are picking up every single weapon. They are at the very best with anything that may be in their hands. And it's incredible to see the consistency from players regardless of what they're using.
Well, it looks like we've got a little bit of an issue on stage at the moment, a technical issue. We're going to try and get that sorted as quickly as we can.
Oh
But in
my
the meantime, we'll take a
God,
quick
man,
look at
what
the
the
wonderful
fuck?
faces here in the Copper Box in London. But we're going to take a break in the meantime. When we get back, we'll have that game ready for you. We'll see you in just a moment.
Bro, you know what? I don't even give a fuck. I'm going to bed. Fuck this.